The Student Art Podcast is sponsored by the Rookies. There's simply no better way to launch your career and start sharing your amazing work online. Throughout their website, you can create your own portfolio, enter lots of contests that take place all year round, and has an incredible community for non-professional digital artists, from hobbyists, students, self-taught artists, to even people wanting to make a career change. The Rookies community brings everyone together, allowing you to be surrounded by people on the same journey as you. So if you want to showcase your portfolio, grow as an artist, and track your progress, sign up to the Rookies today. Hello everyone and welcome to the Student Art Podcast. I'm your host Ross Baxter, and today is episode 56 of the series. Today we have a kind of different take on the podcast. As always on the Student Art Podcast, every week I bring on guests from the film and game industries to talk about their journey and thoughts on student education. However, today we're going to do a different take. It's just myself. You're just forced to listen to my amazing voice, as you know. I'm just kidding. But today on the podcast, we're going to do a kind of different take on things. We're going to approach it from a different angle, and most importantly talk about a subject and a few topics that I don't really go into depth that much about, and it's something that I want to bring more into the discussions from now on when it comes to the Student Art Podcast and for the many podcasts to come. So before we even do that, as always, if you're new to the Student Art Podcast, the podcast is a weekly series where I'm talking to a range of guests from concept art, character art, environment art, you name it. Literally, I tried to bring on a range of guests, but most importantly, bringing on a range of guests from all different ages. It doesn't have to be many years of experience, you name it. The main focus is always getting different perspectives, getting different pieces of advice from people who've just recently finished university and graduated and moved into the industry, and highlighting their knowledge in terms of what they've picked up on, in terms of what they think is good for new artists to learn, and once again learning from people who are experienced. And there's many artists out there in the industry who obviously have many pieces of information to bring up that still we're unaware of, and that's the reason why I do the podcast, is to bring in all these amazing guests to talk about their thoughts, etc. But today we're going to be talking about quite a bit of a very important subject, which is anxiety, and most importantly obviously is like your mental health, friends, family, sport, you name it. And it's a topic I like to bring up every now and then, but I've only talked I think maybe once or twice, and it's something, like I said, I want to talk about more. And when it comes to anxiety, obviously there's many causes for it, and anxiety can cause very bad habits. It could cause obviously many different things, whether it results in causing you to have to get depressed, etc., and it then results in your work quality not getting where you want to go. And it's hard. Like, we always have many challenges in life. Some of us face things different than others. Like, we all go through different phases, and I'm always honest on the podcast. Like, so the last few months for me has been very difficult in terms of just a lot of family things, a lot of things been going on that we all go through at some points in our lives, that you have to learn to acknowledge about how to deal with them and how to approach them, and most importantly focus on your own mentality and how to develop yourself, and most importantly making sure that you don't overwork yourself, because at the end of the day anxiety comes through a build-up of a series of events, or it could just be a disorder that maybe you have or something. And it's okay to have these things. Like, you're human at the end of the day. We all have different complications. And today on the podcast, I really want to dive deep into my journey in terms of how I approach things when things are hard for me and my struggle, and relate to you in terms of like I'm similar to you guys in many ways, and you are the same with me. And that's the only at the end of the day when it comes to the podcast, like, that's the thing that I like to connect with, is that all these artists that I bring on, we all relate to each other. We're all human at the end of the day, like the phrase goes around. And these are some of the things that obviously happen when anxiety happens. So obviously when it comes to anxiety, it can be kicked off from overworking yourself, not being consistent in terms of organised, therefore sleep deprivation comes around, and maybe you're struggling to get to sleep, and it's trying to figure out how to solve anxiety, and some people deal with it far worse than others, and it comes down to a mentality at the end of the day. And one of the phrases that I've never believed in, and it's a phrase that people who say it, it's just because they don't understand what anxiety or people's depression is. And like when people tell you to man up or whatever, there's no such thing. Like you're telling someone to man up, they're just being disrespectful, and you just have to learn how to ignore them. And that's another thing that I learned when it came to going through my journey. So I always made sure to surround myself by people who were positive, and make sure that no negative thoughts were coming into play that was going to affect my daily life. And that's the thing. Obviously, I've had my strengths, I've had my weaknesses. I tend to always have a positive attitude on life, and most importantly, I love to support people, help people, and make them enjoy what they're doing. Because at the end of the day, baby, we know what we're doing. We're making art, and you can't get any better than that. Like, that's the coolest thing ever. And never let anyone else affect your passion. And speaking of stories, etc., and my time growing up, I have a great life. I'm really happy. I'm very positive. But I'm aware, though, that sometimes, well, not sometimes, a lot of the time I've always overworked myself. And overworking yourself to the extremes causes a trail of thoughts or a series of thoughts. And sometimes it can be really hard. And I dived into a slump in which it was getting really difficult for me to kind of almost get out. But because I always had a certain thought in the back of the head, such as you've got to keep going, keep working hard, I would always make sure that I was listening to the right music to get these horrible thoughts, intrusive thoughts out of my head. And like when I was in university, because I was working all the time and not prioritizing my just normal mental health and making sure that my life was fine, I was slowly digging out a bigger hole for myself. And that then caused, I said it once on the podcast, a series of suicide thoughts. And if you're ever going through a hard time and you're listening to the podcast, I completely understand where you come from. I understand that life gets difficult at times. And I have so much respect for all you guys who have been having hard times. And I completely understand where you're coming from. You may think I don't. Some of you, like, I'm aware that some people have things way worse than others. And it's just down to keeping positive, keeping on the right track, not giving up, and keep looking forward to the journey ahead. Because at the end of the day, you just got to make the most of life. And I think a lot of people get sidetracked by the fact that they're so caught up with trying to get a job that they forget the most important thing, which is just making most of life itself rather than prioritizing the job. And when it comes to the last few months for me, there's like so much things that's just been kicking off that it's really complicated to kind of explain and stuff. But because of me always being open with things, I talk to people, I try to get things solved, and some things just don't work out. You just have to, sometimes you just have to move on and approach things from a different perspective, seek advice, acknowledge the mistakes that you've made, acknowledge what you've done right, and naturally you will just grow as a person. And when it came to anxiety for me, like I said, the one thing that's always helped me is being open and being honest. Like, honest is the most important thing. Honesty, patience, and most importantly, having fun is the three things that has always made sure that my life was as fulfilled as I could possibly make it. And obviously there's a lot of other things that come into play in regards to making it a more fulfilling life, such as spending time with family, good quality time with friends and family, geeking out, playing your games, watching your movies, doing things outdoors, exploring the world, exploring nature, understanding new cultures, etc. You name all these incredible things that you have an opportunity to make the most of. But because we get so sidetracked and because of how much we want to succeed and obviously get where we want to go, we forget about being stable and being organized. And something that we forget to appreciate, just being relaxed. So just taking things a step at a time, being chill about it. And I understand it's hard when things pile on. So if you have deadlines for certain things, or maybe people don't understand the way you think, it can be challenging. And so one of the main things with me, and I've said it many times on the podcast, one of the things I've always had to deal with is I'm a really slow learner, and it's always kind of it's always been an interesting curve of how I approach things. And when it comes to learning, I've always had to figure out ways of how to adapt to new learning techniques, etc., or how to kind of get information drilled in. And I'm aware that there's many people out there who struggle with learning, and this then, like if you don't nail it, it then has a compound effect to stress, and therefore naturally causes you to not sleep and stuff. And emotions is always an interesting topic because, like I said, we all take it differently, and like one of the main contributing factors for me to being relaxed is going to the gym and doing exercise. And the main thing that gets me completely calm on a daily basis is running, fresh air, going into great paths through the forest, etc., nice little alleyways, etc. Just getting fresh air and being outside, away from the computer. It's one thing that's helped me so many times. It's helped me when I've needed it the most. And if I've ever felt like I can't sleep, sometimes even just going for a walk and stuff. And like I've had my moments in which I'm in like a deep sweat, or I'm struggling trying to get to sleep, and I say I'm lying on my back, and then a panic attack, you never know, sometimes it kicks into play. Like I'm not a, how can I say it, like I don't dwell on stress. I always focus on, I realize in the situation when I'm experiencing a difficult time, I take a step back and I go like, what's the worst that can happen? And it's literally just I just have to stand up, take a step back and rethink things, have a drink of water or whatever, a cup of tea. A cup of tea has always helped me, as simple as it sounds, but it keeps the body warm. And one thing I learned from my mum, my mum's very good at understanding mental health, because she's had to teach a lot of people at it and explain things and how to approach things. And if you're struggling to get to sleep and you want to get your body tired and you're really struggling to, this is one thing that's helped me. It might help you, is actually get some food in once you've experienced that moment. And that's helped me. Like, obviously people tend to recommend not to eat and drink before you go to bed. Obviously there's certain times in that, but the more tired you are, so say you're really struggling to sleep but you can't because you're stressed, adding food in your body makes your body work. That makes it more tired, so when you go to sleep or try to sleep, you actually fall asleep more. And it's down to figuring out different things that obviously work for you. Everyone's body might function a wee bit differently, you never know. And like that's the thing, when it comes to being in that difficult situation, I always just get up and do something. Try and get your mind away from trying to get to sleep. Don't prioritize the sleep. Obviously you can try all night for ages, or try and going back, but if it's not working, just get up. And like that's another thing. We all, particularly I've realized artists and gamers tend to do this quite a lot, and it's a really bad habit to get into, and it's make sure you don't get into it, and that's doing all-nighters or surviving on coffee and caffeine, etc. And because of this lack of organization, your sleep then obviously gets worse, and people's sleeping cycles completely flip. Instead of getting up early, they're getting up midday and they're going to bed 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning, and things just don't work naturally. And the best thing to ever do if you're wanting to make sure that you're not stressed going to bed, be consistent. Consistency is the most powerful thing, because at the end of the day, consistency beats everything else. If you're the most consistent person, I guarantee you will get ahead of everyone else. You'll be more relaxed, you'll be more happy about yourself, and you'll just feel more fulfilled in general. And most importantly, I guess, it'll have a compound effect on everything else, because everything else will be organized. And organization is such a must if you're wanting to feel more relaxed and take that time to kind of just chill. And speaking of chill, once again, find the hobbies or things that you'd like to do and just do them. Don't prioritize the work, because obviously you have to work hard. Like, you can't take away from that. Like, obviously you have to be passionate about what you do and acknowledge the fact that things take time and so forth. But at the end of the day, you want to be enjoying life. So if you've got a TV show that you want to watch, you've got a friend that you haven't caught up in a while, go give them the chat, go talk to them. And talking is one thing that we as humans are, like, we're meant to do. We're meant to socialize. We're meant to interact. And when it came to me, so I've always been a workaholic. So when I was going through university, I was obsessed with wanting to be the best. I don't deny it. I had this kind of killer instinct mentality of just wanting to prove myself and be the best I could possibly be. And being brought up in a sport background and being surrounded by the competitive nature sport brings, I just wanted to really do well. Because I got kind of stuck in a loop when I was in secondary school and university and college, etc. I used to watch lots of motivational videos, and because I watched so many of them, it began to kind of it made me become too obsessed with wanting to do well. So I used to watch and listen to like Rocky Balboa soundtracks repeatedly. I'm talking like months and months, listening to Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, like the two hardest working people on the planet. Like I've never heard anyone work harder than Kobe Bryant. And if you're wondering, Kobe Bryant he's the most famous Los Angeles Lakers basketball player. He recently retired a few years back, and this guy was relentless. Like he would be sleeping 3 to 4 hours a day. I'm not sure. I think it's called polyphasic sleeping. I might be completely wrong with the term, but he was just that ingrained. But the only thing about that though, like it's great to have a drive in that, but when you get so caught up in the moment of wanting to succeed, you take away the pleasure of enjoyment, and then that pleasure of enjoyment has that compound effect of being stressed, and you forget about the small things. And that's the thing as well, those small things actually then turn out to be the most obvious big thing that is the thing that we live in the first place, and that's to enjoy life, spend time with the family or friends, do things instead of just sitting around all the time. Because that's the thing, we get so sidetracked into having this routine because everyone we've seen has this routine. Like everyone has your typical, we go to work at say 9, we finish at 5 o'clock or whatever time it is, and then we go home, we do our cleaning, yada yada yada, whatever it is. We do our cleaning, we watch our show, and we go to sleep. But life is more than that. There's so much more opportunity to that, and it doesn't need to have money involved. Like that's the thing, money as well. It's like, I understand money is a stressful situation, it can cause us distress. However, you can really have a really fulfilled life if you just acknowledge like how beautiful the smaller things are, and appreciate the things that you have surrounding you, and just naturally you'll become a more positive person. And like that's the thing with me, like I'm the most energetic person that you'll ever see. Like when it comes to like hyping someone up, like I was talking to all my friends today in the Discord, and one of my friends, he's trying to get the confidence to publish some work, and I was just like, right man, this is what you're gonna do, this is like the best advice I can give you. But I also realized though, I had to make sure I took that step back and not pressure him into anything. Obviously giving him the confidence and instill like my trust into him, because I trust his work, he's such a good artist. But because some people don't always have the confidence in art, sometimes you need someone else to back you up and to push you in the right direction. And that's why I said, going back to that point I said earlier, it's like you have to surround yourself by people who are going to encourage you, make you feel amazing, and make sure that you feel like you're in the right place. But then again, you also have to realize that the only way for you to identify if you're in the right place is by trying things out, open yourself to failure, because failure is a beautiful thing. Failure is something that you have to realize is a great thing. And it used to be my only fear. Like I used to be so afraid of failure because I was so obsessed with wanting to do well, and all these things affected my stress, causing me to have anxiety and stuff. And I'm no longer well, I still have my moments and stuff, obviously. Like I can't say I'm no longer afraid of failure, but I'm nowhere near what I used to be. Because I used to be so kind of full on that I was working all the time. I really wanted to be a perfectionist, like the whole typical phrase of perfectionist, trying to master your craft, really trying to hone in on the smaller aspects and then also the bigger picture as well. And I forgot to realize that rest time, that step time, and just the pure enjoyment, like I was taking away the things that I actually valued the most. That's why every time I do a podcast, I always like to say to everyone, take your time doing your thing, but most importantly, have fun making the art that you want to make. Because it's all good and all saying, oh, I want to work for a certain studio, or I want to work on a certain film or game and that. But what's the point if the work that you're making for that is not what you want to do? Like, but you only realize the truth when you actually give it a go and try it. And these are the questions that I like to pass across to students or people who are trying to make an industry, you name it, whatever age you are. These are the important aspects that I feel all have a massive compound effect on stress. And like that's the thing, like we all have hard times and it's hard to keep positive. So when it comes to keeping positive, figure out what's the thing that's going to help you relax. And like I said, sport obviously helps me release endorphins, etc. And it keeps me positive, it keeps me fresh. Once again, going back to the whole topic of caffeine, you name it. The thing though about caffeine is that when you begin to rely on it, your body then relies on it. And that then makes you more tired because you're using it as your trigger to stay awake or something to keep you awake temporarily or keep you alert. But that then has a compound effect when you rely on it too much. So it's getting a healthy balance. And that goes by all the way back to just fundamentals. Are you drinking enough water? Are you eating the right foods? Have you, like I said, kept your schedule at say 6 a.m. wake up or 7 a.m. wake up every day? Because that's the thing. It's like people say, "Oh, I have a long sleep in the weekend." Technically, there's no such thing as a weekend. There's obviously a weekend means it's 2 days that you have off, but that's only based on as the world rotates, based on the whole concept of time. However, your mind though and your body works on like function and routine. Like it has its alarm that when you wake up, and once you screw that alarm, things all go into whack. So what the best thing I realize is just Monday to Sunday is the wake up. You wake up this exact same time every day. You go to bed the exact same same time every day. And because of that consistency, your body always knows when to wake up. And then, therefore, naturally, you no longer need to rely on an alarm clock. Like so many of people in the world today rely so much on an alarm clock. I'm a culprit of it. And it's trying to get out of that loop. So I've been fixing that and stuff and making sure that you don't rely on it so much. But once again, in order for that anxiety to obviously keep its distance, like obviously like we all go through hard times, and I completely get where you guys are coming from. I understand that life's never it's never that easy. Like even though sometimes the world might be look to others that you look fine and stuff, but it's so easy to kind of disguise how you truly feel. And like that's why when I was saying earlier about talking to people, like when I was in university, I just couldn't take it anymore. Like I was literally like, you know what, I need to go talk to someone. So I went to go to I don't know what you call it, not like a psychologist, but well, something like that. So I used to talk to a person once a week, and I just let out everything. And sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I cried, and I'm not afraid to cry. It's just part of life. It's a human reaction. I don't know what the phrase is, but it's a natural occurrence. Like you go through emotions, and once you accept that, like it's okay to show your emotions. Like that's the thing that so many people are afraid of. And like another culprit, social anxiety. I've been going through this for the first proper like time in terms of like how like it's been very I wouldn't say severe, but it's been the worst it's been for the last few months for me. And it was just because there were so many things building up that was happening, and I had to realize, right, things are happening. What am I going to take out of my life to make sure that things were better? And when you're, for example, obviously I'm 24 years old now, and I'm a very confident person. I tend to be a very loud person, not in an egotistical way. I'm not that type of person. I'm very just encouraging. I like to make people feel relaxed and happy and stuff when they're surrounding me, and I like to make them just feel good and good about themselves. And instantly when that trigger then switched over to the other side, and my head was down, I wasn't feeling the same way. I was looking around at every corner thinking people were watching me when they weren't, when I was overthinking small situations and stressing about things that were just small things that shouldn't even matter. And that then all then comes back to, like I said, consistency and trying to figure out what you actually need in your life. And once you acknowledge all these small things, that it doesn't have to, you don't need to nail this by today. Like obviously I'm saying all these things that I hope help you guys when it comes to your lives and stuff, and realize that I'm going through things too, and your friends will be going through certain things. We all have these hard times, and being open about it and being true and being honest is literally the most powerful thing, and it will help you so much in the long run, and you'll feel so much more relaxed. And I just wanted to talk about this on the podcast today because I think it's something that we need to be more aware of. It's great universities are supporting students in that as well, but I hope more studios do the same. And it'd be great to see studios doing that all the time and on a consistent basis. And I know lots of things are in plan for lots of studios, places I've worked at, etc. You name it. It's great to see great to see the growth. It's great to see the appreciation of their employers, etc. And that's the thing. It's like you just have to keep working at it, keep being positive. And it's, I know it's hard. It gets hard. I completely feel where you're coming from. But the more you kind of appreciate, like, life is amazing. There's so many awesome things. Like right now, for example, I'm looking at the most coolest background right now. It's the most awesome forest ever and stuff. Fresh air, nature, you name it. Like, there's a reason why we all love David Attenborough. Like, look at the exploration that guy's life has had. He's explored the world. He's travelled so many places, seen so many cultures, seen so many animals, different life forms, you name it. He's experienced things instead of just got sidetracked and worked all the time. And once you appreciate all the things are around you, like that was one of the great things I was saying to Timothy on the last podcast for episode 55. We were talking about how so many of us get so sidetracked about picking up our phones, and literally, like, phones are like such a distraction. So once you kind of take that step back and stop overthinking social media, stop overthinking all these things that you don't need to be stressing about, you will just feel way much better. So I really hope you've enjoyed that episode, and I hope it's helped you out as much as I possibly could. As always, I really wanted to dive into this, and I want to bring it up more and make it more aware to people, and just most importantly, make it people remember that you're not alone. And if you ever have a hard time, reach out to people, be honest about it. I understand certain things are really hard to admit, like being able to admit that you're having a hard time is a struggle for some people, but you'll do just fine. I promise you'll do great. So just keep working at it, give it the time. There's no rush. If you can do one of the things I said to you today, that's you one step closer to your goal. And take things day at a time, step at a time, and appreciate the life that you've got. And I know you'll do great. And with that said, I hope you have a great weekend. We've got another podcast. We've got podcasts, so many podcasts. It's brilliant. I'm loving making podcasts. See, podcast is my way of enjoying things. I love a good chat. Nothing beats a good blather. Last week, talking to Timothy about steak. Oh my lord, it was amazing. Talking about food. Food is great. Can't go wrong with food. But on that note, on that crazy little me being myself, you know what I'm like. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I hope you took some good pointers from today's podcast. And as always, I will see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening.